no secret that Pokemon Sword and Shield has gotten a ton of negative attention upon its release. Some with some pretty good reason. The Pokédex was cut to less than half of its original size, the new designs looked a little lackluster, and worst of all, the graphics and animations didn't quite live up to the console experience that gamers wanted. While I do mildly agree with some of those issues, I didn't let it hold me back when purchasing the game. Mostly because I have no impulsive control, and when I want something, not even an act of God can stop me. It's a pretty good thing that I'm not addicted to drugs. Well, yet at least. Anywho, I wanted to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly of the game, and give my initial thoughts on how I think about this game. I'm an avid fan of the series, and while I did skip Gen 4 and 5, each of the other games were some of my favorites to date. Except Sun and Moon. I mean, like, seriously. This one game made me consider whether or not I even like Pokemon anymore. If I didn't have Impulse Chill, I would have ended up never buying another Pokemon game again. You know, when I think of cutscenes, I think of content. That's something stopping you from playing the game. I mean, I love Metal Gear and all, but sometimes the codec scenes can often take away from the action. But the difference here is that they actually have substance in them. The cutscenes in Sun and Moon happened too frequently and stretched out things that could have been conveyed quickly. The characters were uninspiring and boring, and progression felt kinda slow. I generally found myself wondering why I even wanted to keep going in the first place. But this isn't a review of Sun and Moon. It's a review of Sword and Shield. And while they do share some similarities in their frustrations, it's pretty clear why one stands out more than the other. So, where do I begin? The game is, well, spoiler alert, it's pretty wonderful. I mean, it's a lot better than I could have hoped to expect. And to convey why I feel that way, I kinda have to take you to the moment where I realized where all of this was going to be an amazing experience. It was when I saw the lush colors of the wild area, the plains going up and down, the sparkling lakes to explore around, trees, a giant castle. And right upon entering this land, I happened to walk up to an onyx just waltzing around in the overworld by itself. It is here that I discovered how this world was so massive and beautiful. How this journey I was going to take is going to be so mad. I just stumbled across a Pokemon that's f***ing 15 levels higher than me. It's kinda crazy when you walk into a wild area, you run into the first Pokemon, and then all of a sudden it's that much stronger than you. I mean, I did have a huge advantage in taking it down because of the water-type Pokemon I had, but you can just imagine how that all took me by surprise. It was the first Pokemon I've encountered in any Pokemon game, well, excluding Mystery Dungeon, that was this powerful, while encountering it this soon in the game. I quickly came to the realization that these Pokemon weren't just wandering everywhere. But this realization that there were just big Pokemon wasn't the only one, but that there was an entire ecosystem of Pokemon around this area. This game has less than half of a full roster of Pokemon, but it actually has the biggest national dex. I've never had a Pokemon game that I could easily find specific types of Pokemon for my team. My beginning team was fine in terms of balance, but I've often found myself catching new ones and swapping them out for older ones. I just had no need for keeping anyone in my team that was underperforming, because there was just always better Pokemon when I needed them. I even had this joke where I swore I'd get rid of one of my Pokemon if it got useless, and replace it with one that could actually do better, but it never actually got that opportunity. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing that the national dex was cut in half, or cut out entirely, but I thoroughly enjoy the variety. I played Let's Go Eevee, but there was really no personality in how the Pokemon were walking around. They often just walk around aimlessly until they bumped into you or flew to you. Here, creatures can stare you down with intimidation or approach you with wonder, run away or chase you, splash up from the water or dig underground. And these were pretty fun to interact with, especially at first. Being able to see the Pokemon act like actual critters is something that, again, I haven't really seen since Mystery Dungeon. And it really gives the world so much more personality. And with so much more than the sea, and so many different domains or weather climates, exploration becomes that much more immersive. Now, of course, this does get kinda old, but it never takes away from the immersion of this being a wide open world. Now, entering battles with Dynamax Pokemon were kinda cool, especially starting off, but the novelty wore off kinda quickly. I really wanted to talk about the things I liked first, but this is just a giant Caparaja in the room. Yes, it's a good idea that you can have a ginormous raid battle that you and your friends can join to take things down in, or even strangers. On paper, a battle like this that takes multiple people to bring down something is a really cool idea. You even get goodies after the battle, like TRs, which are like one-time use TMs, but certain moves that usually aren't a TM move. Rare candies and XP candies, which is exactly what you think it is. You should have incentives to want to go out and do all these things, but battles just seem to stretch on and on. You see, it's not enough to take down these Pokemon with powerful hits. Once you've got them to a certain percentage, they start putting up barriers, like I do when someone asks why I'm so distant. Even if you have an attack that does more damage, it just doesn't go past a certain percentage. It'll stop at that point, making battles much more tedious and lasting much longer than they should be otherwise. I get that there has to be some level of balancing for these types of things, but I think it does way more harm than good. Beyond annoying tactics that drag out the game, there are always 4 trainers that participate in max rate battles. Before entering the battle with one, you're given the opportunity to find trainers for your party before you begin. More often than not, though, you probably won't even be able to find one trainer to help you out. Which is fine because they'll assign you CPU trainers instead. No, it's actually a punishment. Yes, they actually can help you in some ways, but it's actually some trainers that don't even use fully evolved Pokemon, and they use useless status moves that don't even help you out. I mean, I swear to God, there's a Magikarp that always seems to find his way into my games, making it so much more frustrating, because they do just so little, if anything at all, to actually help me take the Pokemon down. I mean, they're basically nothing but hit sponges that end up dying, which makes things even worse because once there's 4 faints, you're kicked out of the battle, and you have to do it all over again. Fainting is okay though, since you'll return after a turn, but if that's all you're doing, you're basically just doing me a disservice by being on my team. And that's not even the worst part. You're able to join other people's raids via the stamp system, but once you attempt to join these battles, 90% of the time it would have already just passed, even if you just refresh the stamps. It's all just a mess, and it clearly wasn't even tested with an online structure at all. All that aside, I do still have fun with these battles, when I get the opportunity to join them at least, but they're more than often a hassle once the novelty is worn off. Back on something good, however, I really like these characters this time. How 2.0 really wants to be the very best, and he shows it off pretty well. Every chance he gets, like even after you beat him the 30th time, he still never loses his spark. Ever. He's a great guy. Love this character. What was I talking about again? Look, I've never been one to like the main cast of a Pokemon game, or cast at all. And there's usually like one trainer that I'll like, and that'll be it. But this time I kinda like all the gym leaders. They all have their little flares that make them all unique. I especially like the subtleness in characters like Bee and Nessa.
You just like them because they're hot!
I especially like the character Rayhan's chill demeanor when chatting with people normally. However, he brings out a more feral side in the heat of battle, tapping in his primal desire for destruction and mayhem. And each of the gym leaders have their fun quirks to them that makes them over the top in a good way. From their dialogue in battle to the way they throw their Pokeballs. Other than that, everyone in the game is kind of boring. Yeah, I know. I said I like the cast, but bite me. I mean, how 2.0's brother's only personality trait is that he gets lost. I thought he'd have a really cool complex of trying to help people be the best they can be, but that was hardly ever even explored. And the chairman's... For evil's sake. Sonia, well, I actually liked her. She starts off being a self-loathing professor's aide that really ends up coming into her own near the end. I'm actually surprised they got away with how they treated her character. BD was fun at times as well. I liked how much of a douche he was, and they used him just enough to be the snarky jerk to make you want to succeed so he could fail. And the plot twist of... Spoiler alert, I don't know. I didn't script this part, it's just like brackets here, but... Spoiler alert, this has stuff if you don't want to know what happens in the story. Like, who wants to know the story anyway? It doesn't even... Having him kicked out of the gym's challenge, only to become a gym leader in training, was actually kind of something I didn't see coming at all. Marini, Serena, and Lily rolled up into one. A cute personality wanting to get stronger, but hardly doing anything to show it. I mean, at the very least, May from Ruby and Sapphire has no desire to surpass you. She just happened to be the one that kicks your ass, and wanted to be a Pokemon researcher at the same time. I always found it funny how I'm over here trying to be the very best, and she's just in the grass wanting to show you some Pokemon she found, and I'm just struggling to beat her. Other than that, all the characters are seriously forgettable, and some are just downright annoying. I hate to be harsh here, but that's just how I feel. But you know something that's not forgettable and annoying? You know, when I first heard about Dynamaxing, I didn't really think there was anything to it. It's just bigger Pokemon after all. But it really upscales the tension in battle. I mean, it makes things so dynamic. It brings things to their max potential. Okay, I'm sorry. Puns are bad. But I genuinely do like the story dynamic of Dynamax Pokemon. Seeing a gym leader get to their final Pokemon and unleashing it, then making it ginormous never really got old, even though the animation was pretty repetitive with no differences. And I'll get back to how I feel about the animation later. I feel like it made the battle have a bit more stakes to it, as a gym leader would always Dynamax their last Pokemon. Their last stand while backed into a corner was their absolute power. I'd usually Dynamax with them just to pretend like there was tension there, but after the first 2 gyms I kinda just destroyed everybody else. But speaking of Dynamaxing, I really did like the stadiums. This is very much so the other reason why I liked the battles. It made it feel as though it was much more than just a battle, it was a performance. The part where the gym leader only had 1 Pokemon left and the music changed up a bit, and had the crowd cheering in the background hit me hard. It really felt like it was a stadium battling in front of thousands of people. After a while, it became just another part of the music, but for those first few gym battles, I was ecstatic to hear it playing. I really was hoping for the league battle to really change things up with the chanting, but for some reason it was just different music with the exact same chanting. Still hype as hell though. The music itself is pretty cool though. The gym battles were hyping up to be some banger hits. The town probably has the most forgettable songs of any Pokemon game. The trainer battles, well, I actually did like some of those, as well as the random encounter theme. They just capture the flair of being a Pokemon battle, you know? Everyone's themes is just forgettable. Even though I see HOW 2.0 like 50 times before the game is over, I actually don't even remember his battle theme, or his regular theme for that matter. I do, however, remember Sonia's theme. It always had a mellow, somber tone to it. It was like every time she entered the scene, everything was gonna be alright. And I don't know if I'm projecting here, but she's got such a big sister vibe to her, just with the music alone. The overworld music is kind of forgettable, but what can I say? But I will say, due to how much time I've spent there, Route 5's theme and the Wildland theme is kinda etched into my brain at this point. I will admit though, the Wildland theme actually does have a bit of a cool tone to it. Bagpipes and whatever else that other thing is really makes the whole place more atmospheric. I really want to love the music as a whole, but it's just so generic. And music, believe it or not, is my most favorite thing about Oh yeah, now I remember HOW 2.0's theme. And speaking of generic, these animations are just very clunky. I want to find something I love about them, but I just can't. Yes, Dynamax moves do look kinda cool, and they cover the entire stadium, but once you've seen it, it just becomes just another generic attack. I do, however, like the special animation for attacks. Each one of the starters and a couple other Pokemon have their own unique special when it comes to attacks. It has some sort of cinematic flair to it, but I feel as though they could have tried a bit harder to make the other attacks fit what they're actually doing. Distant Kingdom's got a video with attack patterns that have terrible animations to them, so you can check that out if you're curious about what I'm talking about here. And speaking of which, whatever engine they use for the 3DS games is clearly what they're using here, because those atrocious turnaround animations have returned. You can also tell that they had to scale down a few things for whatever reason, like the trees and the environment. You can totally find some beautiful areas to traverse in, but it's so limited in the lack of high detail. I don't know if they did this to keep the frame rate down or because the assets were just low quality, but it can really distract you from the immersion. These are some really beautiful areas to observe, and they could do so much better if they just up-res them a little. I know I've been a little harsh on the game, but I really did enjoy things. This is Pokemon after all, so battling is fun, training up my Pokemon are cool, and voice acting. I forgot. But if you're gonna have cinematics where people are talking, having nothing come out of their mouth makes no damn sense. At the very least, have some scribble noises like Celeste does. And exploring a new world makes it worth the price tag. Yes, I did pay $60 for a 3DS game, but I got more than $60 out of it, and I enjoyed every agonizing minute of it. If you're a Pokemon game, this game will... If you're a Pokemon fan, this game probably will disappoint you. But you'll probably still love it though. But that's just because you know it could do so much better. I'm glad it didn't bore me to tears with cutscenes, and although it does push it a little, I'm glad the exploration was actually fun this time. It's a good game with some blaring flaws, ones that I feel wouldn't be too difficult to try and fix. But I'm afraid Game Freak is probably never going to patch up any of these issues. They've made their money, and now they're just waiting on the sales for the merch and Pokemon cards. Of course, there's so much more things I wanted to talk about, but I kinda wanted to keep this as short as I could. But I guess I should give it a score. I give Pokemon Sword a B. And this is the most genuine score I could give any game. It's my second most played game on my Switch, and it keeps drawing me back in. Mostly because I want to breed all the shiny things. And I haven't even done any competitive battling yet. Either way, I hope you're enjoying the new year though. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.